I'm sorry, Henry. You were right. I should have stayed. I'm gonna kill this f***ing clown. I'm gonna 86 this bastard, even if it kills me in the process. All of my gear is still in my truck. I have a crossbow, machete, and gear for setting up traps. You want me to play? I'll play. Game on. I left the funeral home and got in my truck and went to Henry's house. Maybe there he left me something in case I ever came back. Maybe he knows what its weaknesses are. After all, he stayed, and there's a chance he found out ways to hurt the damn thing. Henry's house was still taped off, so after I parked, I walked around back and checked the back door. We used to always hide things under rocks like money and things we weren't supposed to have as kids. Sure enough, under a large rock was a key to the house. I made my way into the place, and it smelled like complete shit. The house would likely be condemned soon. It only had a few pieces of basic furniture and empty fast food bags and wrappers everywhere. I went into his office, and on the walls and floor were newspaper clippings, maps of the sewer system with red string stretched to each of the places victims were found. He was onto something. He circled an area on a map, which is an entrance to the sewers, not 100 yards from where we made our fort. On his desk he had notes scattered around, but one in particular caught my eye. Scribbled down on a notepad he wrote, "Silver, religious symbols, holy water, and that he seems to feed off of fear. Maybe fear itself can be turned against him in some way." And that was it. It's not much, but it's all I have. In one of his drawers, there was a bag of silver beads, a bottle of water, which I assumed to be holy water, and a crude silver cross that had been filed to a sharp point. As I grabbed the items and placed them into my duffel bag, it revealed a picture of us as kids posing in front of the fort we built, with the words "Sanctuary" written on the back. I got back into my truck, placed the picture in the visor, and drove to the hardware store. I had some things to pick up. I bought 30 feet of silver wiring, PVC pipe, a hacksaw, motion sensors, and as many nails as I could carry. The cashier asked me what these items were for. I said it was to help a friend with an experiment he was working on, and left. Seeing as I just couldn't go out and buy a stick of dynamite, I went to a fireworks store and bought a ton of fireworks. The biggest one, which was in the back, was called Fearless Fury. Now that I had supplies, I made it back to my hotel room and began putting together a plan. I cut the piping, tossed in nails, silver beads, and emptied the fireworks in them. I made 5 of these bad boys. I melted some of the silver beads and dipped my arrow tips in them, and then drove to the trail entrance by the creaking bridge. With all of my gear, which must have weighed 50 pounds, I walked over to where our fort was to set up shop. After a short walk, there it was, the sanctuary. Aside from all the mold and debris, this thing was still standing. I climbed up the tree and hoisted up my supplies with the rope. I began modifying the structure by cutting large holes so I could aim my crossbow through them. I set up the motion sensors around the perimeter so I'd be alerted if someone or something passed them. I dug as big a hole as I could, about 5 feet in diameter and about 8 feet deep, sharpened some logs and tree limbs to a point, and secured them at the bottom, then covered the opening with a thin lining of small twigs and leaves. Lastly, I set up a tripwire around several trees and connected him to 4 of the pipe bombs, so if he triggers the wire, he won't have much to laugh at. It was nearing dusk at this point, and I was exhausted. I made my way back inside the fort and passed out for what felt like hours. I woke up sometime around 3 a.m. and decided it was time to finish this. I hiked down to the opening of the sewer that was marked by Henry's map. I needed to lure this creature out somehow. I took a few steps into the dark opening to the sewer and shouted,
"Remember me, asshole? You wanted me to play? Well, here I am!"
I heard nothing but my echoes, and that's when I remembered that he feeds on fear. I was still so angry that I wasn't setting the right mood for him, so I closed my eyes and thought about the things that scare me. I even thought of the creature from the Black Lagoon. I reopened my eyes and looked down the long and pitch-black tunnel, and I saw something in the distance. Red, glowing eyes slowly moving. Looks like I caught his attention. Then I heard a familiar voice.
"You left me to die, Ethan! You promised!"
I couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of dread. I left because I was afraid. I left because I couldn't make a stand. No matter how much I learned about survival, I still felt helpless. My biggest fear became my biggest regret. But not anymore. Then the clown spoke.
Look at you pretending to be brave. You're not scared, Ethan. You can lie to yourself, but you can't lie to me. I can taste it now. Tastes just as real as it did for poor Henry. You know, he tried to do what you're doing. He thought he was brave too. You should have seen it. His sweet, sweet fear was delicious. I'm the embodiment of fear itself, older than your gods. And I'll be here long after your kind has all become extinct. Now, let's play.
In a matter of milliseconds, he was right in front of me. His form began to shift into the same black lagoon monster from when I was a child. As he was morphing, I was able to snap out of it and run back to the area of the fort. He was close behind me. He took the bait. I was scared, sure, but I owed it to myself, and most importantly, Henry, to see this through. I made it back to the fort and climbed up, and everything was set. I grabbed my crossbow and peered out of the window. At first, I saw nothing, just the slow-flowing leaves of the trees in the middle of the night. Then, behind me, one of the motion sensors was tripped, triggering the pipe bombs, and an explosion of great magnitude shook the ground, sending fireworks and nails crashing in every direction in a bright display of explosive glory. Shards of metal splintered the wood surrounding the fort and the trees. It had to have killed him. I eagerly waited for the smoke to clear. As the area settled, I squinted and focused my eyes with a heightened awareness I've never experienced before. My heart was pounding out of my chest, but I saw nothing, just a giant crater where the explosion happened. Then, I heard laughing. The clown was taunting me, first behind me, then coming from nearly all angles until it was deafening. I tried to concentrate. In a split second of clarity, I aimed my crossbow into the empty woods. Then as fast as I could, I whipped the crossbow over my head and fell back and shot behind me. The silver-tipped arrow hit the beast in the chest. It moaned in pain for a moment. It can be harmed. It can die. I reloaded my crossbow and fired what must have been 6 arrows into its body and face. Each time, it would stumble back just a little bit. It took a huge puff of air, and then bloated itself, shooting the arrows out from their entry wounds. One arrow clipped my upper thigh, piercing into the bone. I was hurt, but I've been through much worse. I got back up and snapped the arrow in my leg and threw it to the ground. The blood started oozing out of the clown's wounds and floated in a slow stream in the air like gravity didn't affect it. He looked at me, and I saw a hidden look in his eye that he wasn't sure about himself. He was starting to fear me this time. You're nothing! I take back all the energy I ever gave you! You're pathetic! I swung my machete, lopping off his hand. He looked at it and sarcastically acted like he was in pain, and changed his fake grimacing into an evil smile that I've grown a real distaste for.
This is it? This is your big plan? I thought you would have had more.
I can't die.
Ready for my last trick?
His mouth opened unnaturally wide, and a white beam of brilliant light shot out and struck me in the eyes. I was paralyzed. He began slowly approaching me, and I started to float in the air. Then, a miracle happened. He stepped right onto the pit, snapping the twigs, and falling into the spikes below. He screamed in anguish. It was now or never. I looked into the hole and saw the clown pierced with stakes in nearly every limb, including his big ugly-ass head. He tried moving, but was stuck in place by stakes, and his efforts looked more like convulsive twitches. I grabbed the silver cross from my pocket, and like a ninja star I threw it, connecting with his cheek. It hissed, and the silver burned and boiled his skin. Was it dying? It spoke again, in a deepened yet quivering tone.
I'll come back for you.
With the last pipe bomb in hand, I held out my arms and said, You thought you were the embodiment of fear? Well, I'm the embodiment of vengeance! I'm taking back my home, you son of a bitch! I ignited the bomb and threw it in the hole, and in a spectacle of color and noise, an explosion jostled the ground once more, with flesh and blood shooting everywhere. It was like a grand finale on the 4th of July, the sound of meat and bone crashing to the ground surrounding me. Just then, I started to feel the pain from the arrow in my leg. And the reality of the situation began to emerge. Did I kill it? I crawled to the opening of the hole and looked down. Whatever was left of the clown was a charred, steaming glop of skin and bone fragments. He was gone. A feeling of closure and peace overcame me. The air felt different. I could breathe again. I got up and managed to make my way up to the fort and climb to the roof. Sitting there was the can of red paint from 27 years ago, with the lid still tightly securing it. I pried it open and dipped my fingers in and spread a streak across each eye like war paint from when we were kids. I got on my feet, reached my arms out, and screamed our battle cry. I could swear I heard Henry's voice doing the same thing. The roof gave way where I was standing. I collapsed into a small hole I just created, landing inside the fort and getting knocked unconscious. When I woke up, I took a moment to gather myself and look up at the morning sunlight beaming through the opening of the roof, shining a perfect spotlight on the sign Henry and I made. The sanctuary